Welcome to the Kitchen Table, a show dedicated to helping you escape diet culture, gain trust with food, honor your body, and live a brighter life. Hello, and welcome back to the Kitchen Table. I'm your host, Alicia Brown, and today I am so excited. I've got Rich Taylor here. He is the author of Stress-Free You. He truly believes that you can live a life stress-free. And here on the show at the Kitchen Table, we always talk about the food and body stuff, right? The worries, anxieties, and frustrations that really surround the relationships that we have with food and with our bodies. And here I've called Rich on the show, and he's going to talk about how to actually work towards eliminating that stress. Before we hit the record button today, he's literally said he's living a stress-free life, and he's going to talk about how he actually goes about doing that. After working in the fast-paced advertising business for over 40 years, Rich discovered that he had been using stress as his motivation. While effective at helping make the next deadline, it had significant negative side effects. Rich has discovered how to live life 100% stress-free. I know, that sounds crazy. Stress-free. We're going to talk about that. We're going to unpack it more because he's started a movement to help people achieve the same powerful results, not just with stress that impacts the ways we view food in our bodies, but in other areas of life. So Rich, thank you so much for coming on the show and being here with us at the Kitchen Table today.
Alicia, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a fantastic opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yes. So I want to just get started with a question of what is stress? What is your definition of stress?
Well, stress is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but basically stress is our body's response to danger. Our body has it built in. You're out for a morning jog, everything's good, you're feeling great. All of a sudden you turn a corner and you're confronted by a mean dog that's growling at you. So your body has this built-in mechanism. It switches from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic nervous system response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So basically, this dog is 3 feet away from you, it's growling, it's threatening, and your brain doesn't go, well, let me Google what I should do when faced with a mean dog. No, your body automatically switches to a different part of the brain, which is called the amygdala, and it says you're either going to fight it, you're going to flight it, you're going to run away, or you're going to freeze, pretend you're not alive so it doesn't turn into dinner. That's what stress is. Stress is really known as the stress response. A lot of people call it stress, but it really is a stress response. It's part of our autonomic nervous system. And again, I'm not going to throw a lot of terms because it turns people off, but our body has this autonomic nervous system, which actually is like breathing. It's like that. We don't think about it. It just happens. And thank God it happens because when you need it, it's there. So it automatically happens. So that's what stress is. And the problem is that that's fine if you're faced with a danger like that once or twice in your lifetime. Okay, you turn a corner and all of a sudden there's a tornado coming at you. Well, that's not normal. But when it happens every day, day in and day out, when you're on a schedule, on a pace, you're under chronic stress. And that's when the problem happens. That's when the harm is done to the body. That's when our signals from one part of our brain to the other change. That's where all the negative side effects take effect. And that's where the stress response happens in a different way, which is what we call our go-to. When someone is stressed, they go to the go-to. Okay, they're doing fine, everything's good. The boss yells at them at work, or they get a bad phone call. Now, believe it or not, they're craving carbs or sweets or something like that. They go raid the vending machine, or they stop at fast food on the way home, or when they get home, they binge on something unhealthy. Alicia, how many times when people are stressed, they said they had a really stressful day, they come home craving a big bowl of fresh raw broccoli? It just doesn't happen.
It's completely normal because, carbohydrates, they're the primary source of fuel for our nervous system. And it's like the nervous system is what's being taxed when we're stressed. So it makes complete sense under stress to crave carbohydrates.
Yeah. And the thing is when our brain is under stress, our brain uses a tremendous amount of the carbohydrates or the glucose, which our body uses as fuel. It's like your car is in idle and it's just like the engine's not running much. But when you're under stress, it's like you put your car in neutral and you put your foot on the floor of the gas and now your car is just revving. Okay. is burning a lot more gasoline. Well, that's what our brain does when we're under stress.
Yeah.
It burns a lot more glucose. And everything we eat gets broken down into glucose. But if you want to replace that glucose fast, you could eat a steak, you could eat an avocado, you could eat a peach. Peach would probably be pretty quick. But, potato chips or French fries or something sweet is going to give it to you even faster. That's just our body's response telling you need this. The way you eliminate that problem is don't be stressed. Then you won't have those cravings.
Mm.
I'm going to go a little bit further here. Our whole diet industry is a failure. Now, diets in themselves work if you stay on them. I mean, there's thousands of diets out there. And my co-host, Matt Rush, is a professional speaker, and he goes and does seminars and speeches and stuff like that. And he always asks them, okay, everybody in this room, how many of you people have tried a diet? Everybody puts their hand up.
Everybody.
How many of you tried more than one diet? Everyone puts their hand up. How many people have tried 3 or 4? Most people put their hand up. Then he says, how many of you are still on that diet? Hardly anyone puts their hand up. So the diets actually work. If you follow a diet, you will get the effects of the diet. You will lose weight. You might even feel better, all that stuff. So it's not the diet that's the problem. It's what kicks us off the diet, and that is stress. And what happens is, like I said, say you start a diet on Monday. You get up, you go for a little jog, you have a healthy breakfast, you go to work, you pack the healthy lunch, you're doing good. At 2 o'clock, the boss comes in and yells at the entire department, stresses everybody out. You're immediately going to go right to your go-to, which is the snack machine or something like that, and you're off your diet. So stress is what kicks us off the diet. Everybody has a go-to. Some people have healthy go-tos. Some people might go to the gym and work out. Some people might organize a drawer or something like that to feel better. If you're a type of person that has a healthy go-to, that shows you don't have a lot of stress in your life. But if you have an unhealthy go-to, some people it's retail therapy, like shopping, or they go do something to pamper themselves. And some of these things are not bad in themselves, but if you're doing it in response to stress, that's the problem. And we become used to brag. Oh, I'm always busy. I'm busy, busy, busy. And our acronym for busy is BUSY, is being under stress is yoke. It's not healthy.
Busy, being under stress.
Stress is yoke, BUSY.
What was the last part?
Yoke. Being under stress is yoke.
Yoke.
Yoke, like as you're connected to, like you connect the
Got it.
I'm sorry, not like an egg yolk.
I was like, I'm thinking about food, obviously.
That's okay. That's okay. The yolk's on me.
I agree with you in certain aspects, right? Like, of course, stress maybe kicks us off the quote unquote bandwagon of a diet. And I think it's fascinating that you're pulling out this kind of like case study of stories of how many people have been on diets, multiple diets, or are still on a diet. I agree that stress is maybe one of the things that could maybe bump us off of a diet by reaching for something under stress as a way to cope. And I think that the culture that we live in today is majorly like, can't use food to cope with stress. And I have a little bit of a different take of that because it's so normal to feel stress. And it's so normal to try to actually regulate the nervous system using food. Actually, food can be something that can move our system from that active sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state. Am I getting that correctly?
Active. Yeah, you got it right.
And
and parachute.
We can actually get into, if we can try our best to be in the moment and eat mindfully using food, it can actually get us from like the whirlwind going on of stressful events in our heads to our bodies. It doesn't have to be such an unhealthy thing to reach for food. Do you have any thoughts on how actually the ways that we can cope with stress, even though maybe society at large might think, oh, that's unhealthy, they actually can help us get into a more collected, cool and calm state?
I don't think you can deal with stress, believe it or not. You can deal with it a little bit. You just have to eliminate it. It's like if you had a flaming ball in your air, you can deal with it by throwing it quickly from one hand to the other, but it's all stress is harmful, especially, not a little thing here or there, you're jogging with the dog I'm talking about. But stress triggers all these kind of chemical hormone responses in our body. And if you're under stress from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed at night, that's what's harmful. Now, is food a great comfort food? Hey, that's why they call it comfort food. If you want to sit down and have a nice thing that you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that at all. If it makes you relax, to have a bowl of ice cream or something like that, or whatever your thing is, hey, it's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to like eat mulch for 3 meals a day. I mean,
Right, exactly.
food is something. Look what the Italians do. They spend like from like 12 o'clock to like 2 o'clock every day eating a big meal with their family and friends. And then they take a nap and they shut down all their businesses. Well, I think that's pretty smart, actually. Not like eat on the run, type of thing. So yeah, food I think should be enjoyed. But if you eat food when you're stressed, your body has pulled all the energy out of your digestive system to handle the fight, flight, or freeze, running away, fighting, and all that kind of stuff. Then now you're going to have indigestion problems because you're eating something that your body says, we can't handle it. We sent all the troops up north. So yeah, food is a wonderful thing. It's supposed to taste good. I mean, it tastes good for a reason. The only thing is that if you're using food as a crutch or as a go-to every time you're stressed, or if you're using the sugar part of it as energy, when you get a candy bar to get to this next deadline, eat another candy bar for this, eat some potato chips for this, eat some pizza for this. Hey, you can eat those things once in a while as a treat, but we're not supposed to live on those things.
Yeah. So
and I did it wrong the long way. I did that wrong. I just get to the next deadline. And I realized after 40 years, there's always another deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like the word deadline anyway. It's just not a good connotation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Rich, what I'm hearing from you is that like, if we just like normalize the fact that this is what we're doing, right? Like when we're stressed, we have this tendency to reach for food. If we normalize that, maybe we could have enough self-compassion for ourselves to actually tackle the bigger underlying stress. I often say it's not really about the food. It's about the thing beneath the food. And for you, what I'm hearing right now is like, food can be used as a method to cope. Yeah, there are other tools that we can use to cope, but it's not actually getting at this underlying problem of stress. So how do you go about tackling this actual underlying problem, the thing underneath the food that's maybe prompting some of our coping mechanisms of reaching out for food? Again, completely normal, but how do we actually combat the underlying stress that's kind of altering some of our behaviors?
Actually, that's a great question, Alicia. We come up with these things called stress switches in our book. In our book, we have 108 of them listed. What's a stress switch? A stress switch is a person, place, or thing that causes you stress. Okay? It could be a job. It could be a toxic relationship. It could be where you are. It's something that's causing you stress. And if we identify them, and then if you know what they are, then you can turn them off. And I give you an example. Our number one stress switch is news blackout. Do not watch the news. The news is extremely stressful. They are basically what they're doing is selling strife or anger or hate. Now, I'm old enough to remember before there was 24-hour news, there was just 30 minutes of nightly news every night from Walter Cronkite and those kind of people. And every station was the same. It's just who got the scoop first. That's all it was. Now with 24-hour news, they have to fill it up. Well, they don't have enough news to fill it up for 24 hours. So it's only 30 minutes. So what they do is they've created sides. Now, if you look on, I'm not picking sides, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever, independent. But if you look on one news channel, let's say a right-wing news channel, and you see things that are big headlines, you look on the other one, the left one, or vice versa, they're not even mentioned. It's like two different worlds they're reporting on. That never used to be that way. So what they do is we need to keep people engaged watching our show. So let's get them all ticked off at each other so that they'll keep watching us. And I've seen people, I know I can tell what station they binge watch. They have it on their big screen TV from the moment they wake to the moment they go to bed. My wife and I do not watch the news. We don't consume it anywhere on our phone, anywhere. We run from it. It's because it's so toxic and people think it's normal. The news is bad news. It's all bad news. So stress switch number one, news blackout. Go a week without it. The first couple of days, you'll feel like you have a monkey on your back, but after you'll be like, why do I feel so calm?
Mm.
So this is common. It's in plain sight. People don't even realize it.
So
That's
you're
a stress
saying
switch.
it's like disconnecting yourself from triggering things.
Yes.
So if you find, the trigger is the news, detach yourself from the trigger and you might have less stress. In the case of, either it's politics or health, we feel like a responsibility though to like be in the know, to be in the health realm, to really take care of ourselves and to get the information that we need. And so for many here at the kitchen table, we might be on social media, kind of absorbing things from social media, like comparing our bodies or looking up different diets or, like things like within the social media world that we use and discern through like our own bodies to see like what is truth for us and not. And we do the same with the news, right? Yeah, the news is triggering, but we feel this like responsibility as maybe like patriots or Americans to know something about what's happening in our country. So how do you like acknowledge that there are really good things coming from the stress? I mean, this kind of stress can be good, right? There are aspects of the information presented that can do a service for us, right? I think without social media, a very triggering platform, extremely triggering. I see like my little intuitive eating feed as being like a light amongst a lot of darkness on social media, right? Social media is triggering, but there's a lot of powerful connections that can be made there, right? So how can we navigate the stress, but still be a part of the good that's among that stress? Or do you think disconnect from it altogether because all stress is bad?
Well, I believe all stress is bad, unless it's emergency, and that's what I addressed before. Now, social media, that's a totally different thing. It all depends on how you handle social media. I'm just going to kick back to the news. I mean, if I need to know what's going on, someone's either going to tell me, or I'll see it on YouTube, or I'll see it on Facebook, or something like that. But 99.9% of what they're selling is hate, anger, and bad news. So why do I want to be plugged into that? And I go months without watching it. And I mean, do I need to know about what's going on with COVID? Yeah, or stuff like that. I live in Florida. I need to know. I have ways of finding out, but it's not by having a TV on 24 hours a day. And here's another thing. Your kids are absorbing that garbage, that hate. I mean, we get all concerned about secondhand smoke. There's secondhand stress. That's just as bad, if not worse. When the kids are on listening to the TV about the president of the United States getting impeached. Now, Democrats have gotten impeached and Republicans have gotten impeached. But just to give an example, I'm not pulling sides, but the president of the United States used to be a position of respect. Now they're getting trashed by one side or the other, and both sides do it. I'm not picking sides. Both sides do it. And so that affects kids growing up. And when they see these tragedies, that they don't need to know that some building got blown up and these bodies are all over, or the school shootings alone. That's extremely stressful for kids. Should you be a know about it? Yeah. But does it have to be like plastered, all over the thing, and they hour after hour after hour? How did you feel about this? It's all tragedy. I mean, that's stressful. Yeah. So you turn it off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what do you fill up instead? So instead of, you just disconnect then in your theory here of eliminating stress by eliminating triggers. We disconnect from everything triggering. So we disconnect from the news. If social media is especially triggering, we disconnect from social media. We find intentional ways to eat. Like my husband sometimes totally stresses me out, but when he stresses me out, would I just disconnect from him? There's a lot of things that I love that stress me out. How can I navigate that? Like if I really love a lot of things that stress me out, even exercise, all these things provide some level of stress, but they also provide some love. How can we find our way to navigate the stress, even though there's love embedded within the stress, especially thinking of our relationships? And our relationship with food is the same. We love food, even though there's some conflict for many of us with our relationship with food. There's a lot of love for our relationship with food there as well. So how can we fill us up with like the love part while also navigating the stress part?
Well, I talked about relationships first. there's two types of stress. There's lifestyle stress, and then there's life event type stress. Life event type stress, you really have no control over. You know, uh, companies go out of business, a family member passes away. You have no control over that type of thing. Lifestyle stress, we do have control over. The relationships we have, the jobs we take, how much sleep we get or not sleep we get. Sleep is very important to not being stressed. The foods we eat, the foods we don't eat, the habits we have, and all that kind of stuff. How do we drive fast on the highway, or do we drive slow on the highway? Those are all things we have control over. So our goal is to eliminate as most of those things that are negative stressors in our life. And I'll give you another stress switch. Not being connected to work 24 hours a day. So many people, especially when they're working from home now because of the pandemic, are connected on their phone. They're checking emails at 2 a.m. We're not meant to do that. When my dad used to go to work, he'd leave work at 7 o'clock in the morning, take a train to work, and leave work at 5, be home at 6. He never knew what was going on at work until the next day or over the weekend until Monday. We're supposed to be off, but there's bosses sending emails and texting and calling at all hours of the day and night. So we tell people, you need a break, at least 12 hours. It could be better if it's longer than that, but then you need to be off. Now, if you need to check something for the next day or be prepared once in a while, that's fine. But that's your rest and digest and restore time. The opposite of fight, flight, and freeze is rest, digest, and restore. You can't do that if you're always working. You're robbing time from your family. You're robbing time from your brain relaxing. You'll be a better employee if you're not stressed out all the time. You're not burnt out. And I did it wrong. I mean, I've done this thing. I've been self-employed for like 30 years. I've worked from home for 30 years. And there's many a time that I blew my kids and my family time off to get that next deadline, make more money for another client. But in the end, I can't take those time back from my family. I'll never get that back. So I'm just saying, you got to, evaluate. You can't do it, but sometimes you just have to say, I'm taking tonight off, or I'm not working late. Or I think after 7 o'clock, we call it 7 to 8, 7 in the morning, 7 at night, you can be work involved. Better if you do less, but at least do that. After that, you're off. Don't respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we have control over that.
So are you saying that we, in our culture and our society right now, we spend more time in the fight, flight, freeze state than in the rest, digest, restore state? And that imbalance is really negatively impacting our lives.
Absolutely. You're going to,
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be 99.9%, rest, digest, and restore, and 0.1% fight, flight, or freeze if it really happens. But our bodies, when we're under stress, all these hormones get dumped into it. And cortisol, if you want to talk about weight, I mean, cortisol it regulates the blood sugar in our body, because what it's saying is, look, we need energy, but we're not taking it out of the muscles because we need the muscles to run away or to fight. So we're going to take it out of the other parts of the body. And guess what? They flood the blood system with glucose. And guess that's a fat storing hormone. Cortisol is like insulin. They're both fat storing hormones. So if you're in a state of stress all the time, you could eat really good. You could eat really healthy stuff to not gain weight. You could exercise and all that stuff. You can get the right amount of sleep. But if your cortisol levels are high, you're going to gain weight. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. It's basically, you're basically like working against yourself. You could do all the things right. And I know all these women, I've had them, I've talked to them. I do all these things right and I still gain weight. I'm like, well, you're stressed out. Your cortisol levels are high. So how do you get your cortisol levels down? Turn your stress switches off.
Get off the diet potentially as well. The diet itself is causing
the diet is
an insurmountable amount of stress.
Alicia, diets are based on restriction.
Exactly.
So basically, let's say, okay, you used to eat this thing that you enjoyed. Now you're no longer going to eat that thing and enjoy it. So now, guess what? Going on a diet just increases your stress level. Just going on a diet is stressful in itself.
Exactly.
That's why they don't work.
Exactly.
So, but they say, go on a diet if you want to do this. No, your body is a beautiful thing made by God. It has its own balance, its own center. It knows what it's want. I tell people, if you have a bathroom scale, first of all, that's an oxymoron. There should be nothing called a bathroom scale. If you want to have a bathroom scale, take it and put it in your closet, like way, way, way in the back of the closet.
Yeah.
Don't weigh yourself. If you want to weigh yourself once a year or something like that, you can do that fine. But don't. I know people, my dad, who was never overweight, but he was like always fighting with 5 or 10 pounds. That's just my dad. He's a super analytical guy. He'd weigh himself every day, and he had a little piece of paper next in the bathroom, and he'd write, like, this is how bad it was. He'd write 188.4, like 0.4. Who gives a rip about 0.4? I'm like, that's just my dad. He's a great guy.
Oh, there's a lot of people like this, right? That the numbers especially cause us stress.
Screw the numbers. The numbers,
yeah, exactly.
They're going to make you more stressed out, okay? And then you're going to eat more bad food because you're stressed out. That's how it works. Don't weigh yourself.
Going back to the cravings conversation, I think that, the cravings are really derived from the restriction as well. And so if it's like, if we're trying to follow a diet or just eat healthy or just eat clean or do intuitive fasting, it's like one of these new diets out. Like Gwyneth Paltrow, I did an episode on that a few episodes back. Geez, like it's so hard to just like try to eat healthy, right? So then like when you're saying with the scenario of your boss yelling at you in your department, you're feeling stressed, we immediately like want to rebel against these rules and structures that we've set up for ourselves that stress us out because we want to actually rebel against the stress. So it makes complete sense. And with the cortisol kicking in, it like paints this whole picture of how stress influences our eating and ultimately like disconnects us from our body. It's a belief that when we're in this like fight, or freeze state, we're disconnected from like our cues and body sensations and like being able to really honor and respect the body because all of those feelings are deeply internal, like in the body. It's really hard to say like, oh, how hungry you are when you're super stressed. You're like, I don't know, I just need to eat something right now, right? Absolutely. So it's like we can be more embodied, would be more stress-free. Does that feel true?
Absolutely. There's our main part of our brain is the cerebral cortex. That's where we get all of our, our feelings, our rational thinking, and all that kind of stuff. And the moment we're under a stress response, it switches to a part of the brain called the amygdala. It's actually called the amygdala hijack. It does it automatically. You don't have any control over it. And it does it to protect ourselves. So, right. But if you're in a state of stress all the time, you're thinking from the wrong part of your brain. As the saying goes, the person's acting all stressed out. Have they lost their mind? In a way, they have. They have lost their mind. They're in the wrong part of the brain. This right brain, left brain stuff doesn't count. I mean, it really means that they're thinking from the wrong part of the brain because they're in a state of stress all the time. And men especially. Men think stress is like a badge of honor, a badge of courage. Like, yeah, I can handle 8 things at once, and my schedule is packed. The moment I wake up I get up, I go do CrossFit. What's CrossFit? I don't know, but I do it anyway. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. This guy had this like go, go, go mentality, and they don't think that they're doing anything unless they're doing it. And I kind of describe it as basically you're in a rowboat, and all of a sudden there springs a leak. So, okay, there's water coming in, so I need to bail the water out. So they find a bucket, they get the bucket, they fill it with water, and they take the bucket of water and they throw it over their shoulder into the back of the boat. Instead of throwing it off the side of the boat, so they're doing something, it makes them feel like, yeah, I'm doing something, but they're just a hamster wheel type thing, It's a mistake. And why do men live 5 years less than women? You know what I mean? 8, 7 years across the world that way. Stress is dangerous. Yeah. I give you one quick example. My dad, again, super smart guy, straight A student when he went to school, wonderful person, but he was a performer. And he took this job as a manager of an insurance company. And when he took it over, it was a disaster. It was like rated number 400th in the country. And my dad's like, that ain't going to work. So within 2 years, my dad got it from number 400 to like number 11. And he did a great job, right? But I remember I was young back then and living home in my parents' home after I get back from art school. And I remember coming home every day and he would say, I'm doing a job of a much younger guy. This is so stressful. I'm doing a job of a much younger guy. He was in his early 50s when he was doing this.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? Within a year, he came down with two forms of very life-threatening cancer. And thank God he got into Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York. We lived in Connecticut at the time. He had major surgeries and a year of horrendous chemotherapy, and he survived it. And he lived to the age of 93, thank God. So, but his body under stress, it released, your immune system is compromised, and it unleashes things that are there that are not good. So if you're never stressed, it'll never unleash the healthy things in the body. That's where over 80% of all visits to the doctor office are stress related.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yeah.
actually higher than that. Yeah.
The doctor's office then causes a lot of stress.
Oh, I hate
Especially when
going
you're
there.
at the doctor's office, then you have so many numbers to grapple with. Then you have a really hard time getting more healthy because you're so stressed out about the numbers, kind of going back to our prior conversation. But I want to hit you with a couple more triggers that myself and my clients have been experiencing. Would you be open to that?
Go ahead.
The mirror is something that for so many of us, when we see ourselves in the mirror, we just nitpick, we criticize. There's certain parts of our body that we have not accepted. And then we repeat these mantras in our head of why we don't like these parts of ourselves. This causes us a lot of stress. It impacts the rest of our day. What would you say to somebody? We can't escape from looking at the mirror, but how can we reduce that stress? Would you really say take all the mirrors out of your house to live more stress-free?
It's a very common problem. We did on our podcast, we did an episode, I think it's called How to Help a Healthy Body Image. And basically, it's our human nature based on our society, combination to always find the flaws in the thing. In the very beginning, we do a lot of skits on our podcast. And at the beginning of it, me and my co-host, I was holding up a white piece of paper, a little tiny dot in the middle of it. I mean, a tiny dot. And my co-host and his wife, Matt and Katie, the skit was, I said, hey, Matt and Katie, what do you see? And they go, oh, there's a big old dot. Yeah, that's sucker. Look at that big dot in the middle of the white page. It was a spoof we're doing. But that's how we're trained. Okay, look at that one zit or that one wrinkle or that one fold or something like that. And we're saying, no, all it does is stress you out more, which is going to cause more of the behavior that's going to give you that problem. It's going to give you the wrinkles. It's going to make you gain weight. You are a perfect, beautiful being. So you look in the mirror and you say, you are gorgeous. That's what you say. In spite of what you think or what you say or what you see, not what you say, what you see, you are gorgeous. If you keep saying that and you don't stress you out about it, and don't stare in the mirror and don't do the thing where you're looking to the right, to the left, and is this, that, the other thing, just look in the mirror and say, you're gorgeous, and you're going to have a great day. That's what mirrors are for. Now, you want to put your makeup on and do your hair and make sure your clothes are right, fine, do that. But don't ever, ever focus on a flaw. What you focus on becomes your world. What becomes your world, you become.
Oh, that's really powerful.
Okay? So if you want to be an overweight, ugly, terrible person, keep saying it. Keep focusing on it. But if you want to be a wonderful person who lives a life of love, joy, peace, so that you have a sound mind, look in that mirror and say, you're gorgeous. God made you and God did a good job. And here's the thing about women. It says in the Bible, men were fashioned from the dirt of the earth, okay? Men were created from the dirt of the earth. He said, in the Bible says, women were fashioned. So what does that say? Men came from dirt. Women were fashioned. They're a work of art. Women are a work of art. Men, we're like tree trunks, you know what I mean? But women are a work of art. They're princesses. They have the ability to bring life into the world. What man has ever done that? Women, I have so much higher esteem for women. We wouldn't be here without them. Look at it that way.
Amen. And I love all of your references to the Bible and to God, because I think that there's such a great correlation between our faith life and our values when we're talking about stress, especially regarding triggering things like looking at the mirror. And I agree that we are made beautiful, bodies of every size. You made a comment of overweight and ugly. Oh, bodies of every size, right, are so beautiful. If we stop focusing on the size, maybe we could eliminate some of the stress. But you're also right that, our culture and society gives us these standards and ideals that we try to so often achieve, and they're impossible. The ideal body, you know, and it changes, right? From, being a Kardashian to being Jennifer Aniston, like in the 90s, right? This is like an ever changing standard in our society that we try to achieve. And it's really difficult. It leads to a lot of our stress. So I love this idea that like what you focus on becomes your world. So often, like our world internally, a lot of people don't see this, but our inner world is so obsessive about these flaws about ourselves. But would you agree that some of the flaws that we've made up about ourselves are rooted in things that aren't really true to us, that are more true to ambiguous ideals from our culture anyway? Do you ever think it's necessary to kind of like sift through some of that conditioning to kind of get to the root of like who we are and what we really believe in to help alleviate some of that stress?
Yeah, absolutely. I give an example going back to the body type. I've got a thin bone body. It's just the way I was born. I can't change that. And my first watch I got was one of those with the flexible bands, you know what I mean? And I would put it on and it'd be like dangling on my wrist. And so I could do everything I wanted to, but that watch was never going to fit my wrist. Okay. So we have these like things in culture, like here's the thing. Fashion changes every so many years. Why? Because if it never changed, you'd never buy new clothes. I mean, I remember when bell bottoms were a big thing when I was a kid. Bell bottoms were a big thing. Then straight legs, and then this and that, and then they used to call them clam diggers. Then they came out with something else. They're constantly changing it so that you constantly are buying new things. So it creates this thing in our mind where we're constantly supposed to be following society, and if we don't follow society, somehow we're left out. And I think that's a mistake because then all your individuality gets lost in what society thinks. And then it gets us to this point where we're trying to impress people that hate us. I mean, why should we do that? You know what I mean? If we're looking really good and someone's going to hate us or feel threatened by us, we're doing it for the wrong reason. We should do it because we feel good about ourselves.
I love that so much. And I think that it takes this real deep connection with ourself and who we are. When you speak, I mean, I feel such a sense of confidence and ownership in who you are and what your values are, even in regards to how you dress. Like, is that derived from the stress-free work that you're doing? Or, like when you were working, 40 hours in your advertising world before you came to your stress-free world, did you see your confidence change? Did you see your sense of integrity, sense of self change as you switched from the stressful life to this more stress-free life?
Oh, confidence, huge, huge, because you reach a point where you don't care. And I mean that
Yeah.
I mean that in a positive way. It's not like, well, I don't care. I left the door open and mosquitoes come in. It's not that kind of a thing. It's, I don't care about things that are not of value. If it doesn't bring value to me, to my family, I don't care about it. I don't want it. I've made my circle very small. I've turned those stress switches off. And otherwise, it's basically you're doing things that are harmful to yourself. I mean, like I said, I made lots of deadlines for lots of businesses that made a lot of money, but yeah, I get paid for it. But at the end of the day, was it worth missing a birthday party or missing
Mhm.
time snuggling on the couch with my wife and my kids, stuff like that? I think the most important thing human beings do is to be in a relationship and to raise kids. I think that is like the Empire State Building, and everything else is like a little molehill. And whatever comes against that, I would fight off. Here's a couple. Honey, I got this new job promotion offer. I'll take it. It'll double my salary, but it'll double my stress. I probably would have taken the job back in the day. Now it would be like, there's no way in the world I would take that job. My wife and I would live in a little shed in the woods before we'd take anything with more stress. It's just not worth it. Your life, all the joy of your life will get sucked out of you. So yeah, you got more money, but you're going to spend more money on your go-to. Now we're going to get a boat because we have to have a boat. Now we need to join the country club because we have more money. Now we need a bigger house. Now we need this, that, and the other thing. We become more and more and more. You just turn into a moron. That's basically what it is.
I'm smiling from ear to ear at the start of this episode, I'm thinking there's no way that we can really be stress-free. But what you're saying right now, it really aligns with a lot of things, really aligns with a lot of my personal values, but a lot of the values that we also talk about on the show. It's like, how can we reunite with who we more deeply are to live a more purposeful life? Of course, we have to first really see what's triggering us or pulling us more further away from the things that really matter the most to us in our life. And it seems like through your work to become more stress-free, you've really had to define what your priorities are and what you won't compromise. And it seems like you will not compromise stress for more money or stress for less time, stress for anything else. You won't compromise your mental health. And I think that's something that's not prioritized enough in our society today. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I'll give you another example. Goes way back. My wife and I have been married, I think, coming up on 37 years. But I was single, living in an apartment in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I was working for a cable television magazine back when cable first came out. It was so long ago that cable was $4 a month. That should tell you how long ago it was. And if you wanted HBO, it was $2 extra. So for a whopping $6 a month, you could get cable with HBO. That was a long time ago. So here I am working for a cable television magazine. So I'd come home and I would turn my TV on. I'd watch one HBO movie. I'd watch 3 HBO movies. Then I'd go to bed. I would do that every night, like clockwork. Then all of a sudden I said to myself, this is nuts. What kind of life do I have? So I canceled my cable and I sold my TV. And everyone, including family members, said, you sold your TV? How are you going to know what's going on in the world? Well, that's crazy. And when they said that's crazy, I knew I was doing exactly the right thing. I spent the next 2 years, I joined a book of the month club. I read books. I spent more time going out. I met my wife at a Bible study. I enjoyed life. It was wonderful. And to this day, I don't watch television. It's garbage. I mean, there's a few good things here or there, but to my mind, it's not worth shifting through the commercials or the junk to find a good thing, And yeah, it worked for me. So when people said you're crazy, I thought that's validation to me because everyone else is stressed out.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to look at ourselves. If you don't want to do the stress switches, take a sheet of paper, write down all the things that are causing you stress. And if you don't know what they are, ask someone that's close to you to help you out. Write them down. Now, you may think this is normal that I got to get up at, 6 in the morning to get my kids at daycare or something like that. But if that's stressing you out, write it down. Whatever it is. And then draw a circle around the things that are most important to you and everything else that's not important. Discard it.
So you're all about eliminating unimportant stressors, even though they might provide you some form of entertainment, even though they might be a pastime to you right now. Think about if they're causing you stress, what life might be like if you eliminated the stress.
Absolutely. Like I said before, we were designed, okay, if you pull up at a gas station and the gas station attendant comes out to put gas in your car, but instead he takes out a big 2-liter bottle of a cola and starts pouring it into your gas tank, you'd be like running out of your car, you'd slap it away out of there, like, what are you doing? Why are you putting that? I'd be freaking out. And rightly so. And he'd say, well, I like it, so I thought I put it in your gas tank. And you're like, but it's not designed to go in there.
Yeah.
It's the same way with stress. We're not meant to be stressed all the time. Okay. Our society has taught us, yes, it's okay, but no, it's not. We're supposed to get up, stop, buy the $5 cup of coffee at $5 and then, go to work and then, pretend you're like your day is so packed full of this, that, the other thing. Or if you're at home, you got to have your kids so involved in everything. When my kids at one point in time, we had them in dance and little league and gymnastics and soccer and hockey and all kinds of stuff. And my wife and I said, well, what are we doing? We're taking our kids from school to this activity, that activity, quick, eat, do your homework, go to bed. And we took them out of 80% of their activities. So yeah, it's good to be in some activities, but we had them overcommitted because we thought that's what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
No, heck with that. No, you never get that back. So treasure those moments. But another one, if you have toxic friends, eliminate them or minimize them. Or maybe the relatives are toxic. You just got to put up your boundaries. If they're stressing you out, well, maybe don't talk to them as much or don't see them as much just because they're stressed. Anything that causes you stress is harmful to your body. It causes trauma in our body. It's a form of energy, and energy is absorbed in our body, and it doesn't come out. It stays there forever. And I'll give you an example. One of our ways of getting energy out is through our emotions and our feelings. If you look at kids in a playground, a kid could fall down and get hurt. He's crying hysterically, okay? Crying hysterically. 2 minutes later, he's back on the thing, laughing and screaming, okay? Have you ever seen an adult do that? First of all, they'd hold in the pain. And then the second thing, they're not back out yelling and screaming. So they're going to hold that in. The boss yells at them. They have the bad situation. And then they hold it in. They hold it in and hold it in. All that piles up inside the body like a battery. And then you add stress, comes on top of it and packs it down, packs it down, packs it down. And then all of a sudden after 20 years, they break up their marriage because they can no longer function as in a good relationship, or their kids have all these problems, or they have health issues and stuff. I don't want to focus on the negative, but let's face it. If you do that, it's not a good situation. But let's flip it around. Let's say you don't have any of that stuff, and then you don't have the stress, and every day you wake up and go like, this is going to be awesome. My kids are awesome. My dog is awesome. Whatever house I live in is awesome. I have an awesome wife, awesome job. And it's not just positive thinking, which is very powerful, but it's setting your framework and your environment to not tolerate anything toxic or stressful. I mean, we're so keyed up about the pandemic and the pathogens and the viruses and what we can touch, and you can't touch your face, and you got to wash your hands 10 times a day.
Right.
And I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking the science, but that can consume some people. Okay,
Absolutely.
And I know people I've got neighbors that go for a walk with their dog wearing their mask.
I mean, there's a lot of fear.
I mean, what are you going to get walking a dog?
Right.
Nobody's coming within 30 feet of them, and they're walking the dog, his husband and wife, with their mask.
The fear has replaced all logic, and that fear drives us stress.
Yeah.
It makes us stressed. Rich, I cannot thank you enough for all of your sharing. I am so intrigued by your philosophy, and I feel like this conversation has really opened the door for some people to explore a more stress-free life. Do you have any place that you want to direct them to right now so they can learn more about you, potentially your podcast, your website, anywhere that you want to direct them to? I will link everything that you shared with me in the show notes.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Alicia. You can go to stressfreeyou.net. It's stressfreeyou.net. That's our website. And on there's links to our podcast, which is called Stress for You. And you can get links to our book, Stress for You, which is on Amazon. And our podcast is, it's on everywhere you get podcasts. And every Tuesday we do like a podcast at this length, like yours. And then every Thursday and Sunday we do what's called the Stress Free Minute. And it's just a 1 minute little tidbit of how to live life free of stress. So, and we have a lot of fun on our podcast. We have great guests, and I want to have you as a guest on ours.
Would love to be on. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for being here for this awesome, super impactful conversation about stress. Really happy to have you on. Please, everyone, go grab Rich Taylor's book, Stress Free You. Find it on Amazon. Hit up his website. Thank you so much for being here, Rich. And for everybody listening right now, if this show impacted you in some way, screenshot and share it with somebody who you're particularly finding is really stressed out in their life right now, somebody that really needs to hear this message. And while you're there, while you have your phone out, hit the subscribe button to the show. Ra-da-da! Thank you very much. When you hit that subscribe button, you will not miss an episode every Monday and Thursday here at the kitchen table. Rich, thanks again. And everyone else, have a marvelous, marvelous Thursday. We will be talking soon.